We back, baby. I hope you had a great Christmas. My internet has actually been down for like the past 3-4 days from like the Nashville bomber or something. I don't even know if this guy's got a name, but I heard RV explosion and I immediately thought it was a meth lab. Still don't know what the hell it was. Regardless though, today I want us to talk about an auto rifle, one of which is a new auto inside of Destiny 2. And considering that two of my favorite auto rifles have been sunset, both Misfits and Valakadon, Arctic Haze is like, well, your next best thing. Now you can get this auto rifle from proceed to do the bounty for it. And when we think of like weapons in the same archetype that can compete with Arctic Haze, you got Reckless Oracle from Garden of Salvation. You've got Steel Feather Repeater, which I actually still think Steel Feather is the best 720 in the game. I don't know what it is about that auto rifle. It just feels right. Arctic Haze feels good and it gets as close to that, but there's something about Steel Feather, man, like chef's kiss, you know? But let's talk about this auto rifle because we did get to play with a number of god rolls. Big shout out to Syphilis or Syphidius for allowing us to play with this god roll, as I wanted to see if this weapon had what it took to surpass that of Steel Feather. And it was this roll right here. We've got full bore for that ginormous bump there in range, accurized rounds for another bump there in range, killing wind, which roughly adds like what, 3-4 meters between kills, and it's got a pretty decent duration. And the final perk there is Elemental Capacitor. Now this is a pretty superb roll, especially if you're rocking a void-based subclass, and I know everybody's like hung up on stasis for good reason. Elemental Capacitor has definitely diminished in its value as nothing stasis really adds value here. And I wonder if Bungie's gonna work something into that, like stasis increases some other hidden stat, maybe target acquisition, I don't know. But as of now, stasis literally does nothing with Elemental Capacitor, but I am rocking a void-based subclass to take advantage of that increase there in stability. Now correct me if I'm wrong, I've been told Elemental Capacitor on a void-based subclass roughly adds plus 20 stability. Now, I don't know who the hell found that number, but that sounds right, man. I'll take it. Plus 20, hell yeah. Sure. Regardless, though, this was supposed to be both a very good roll due to its range and the stability being made up due to Elemental Capacitor. The results? I liked it. I really did. But considering that this is Elemental Capacitor, it does marry you up to a void-based subclass. I don't necessarily need better reload or better handling, so obviously going void and getting that increase in stability is extremely nice. Now, when we look at the random rolls of this weapon, you've got a few other options, at least for PvP. You've got Eye of the Storm. This weapon does have a 0.77 time to kill value. The biggest drawback is, of course, damage fall off in its range, especially in this sandbox. As you start to get diminishing damage at long ranges, that time to kill increases greatly, thus making this weapon less optimal. Arctic Haze makes up for this by having just good base stats. Its zoom is still 16. Its aim assist value is even better than that of Steel Feather. Its range is about the same, but its base stability as well as handling is also much better than Steel Feather. And I put Steel Feather up there because if you've played with some god roll Steel Feathers, I've played with that firmly planted Elemental Capacitor roll. It's an auto aiming stability machine. Firmly planted essentially makes this weapon completely vertical. In combination with the stability bump from Elemental Capacitor, I had a fantastic time playing with that roll way back when. Regardless though, that was in a time when Gnawing Hunger and 600s were reigning terror inside of Crucible. Not anymore. Matter of fact, 720s are in a position, at least time to kill wise, where it's better than 600 round per minute autos. But auto rifles aren't really the meta, and we're actually going to do a breakdown more seriously on our exotic auto rifles, things like Suros, Parlight, Monte Carlo, and other famous 600s such as Summoner, Gnawing Hunger, etc. But just looking at Arctic Haze today, I feel like the weapon is fantastic, but with limited rolls in regards to PvP. PvE, I love the rolls on this thing, man. Thresh on a primary, hell yeah. Roll with something like Subsistence, Outlaw, Triple Tap. You even got Dragonfly there in that final column. And that's what I'm saying. I'm completely okay with this weapon being more gauged at PvE than PvP, which is what I think Bungie's trying to go for here. But inside of PvP, I just felt the weapon was lacking. Despite the base stability bump being much nicer, despite us having everything here loading out our range, we still ran into damage fall off at 27.5 meters. And now that there's been this big bump in range for all of our primary weapons, 720s are really kind of in a pickle. What the hell is this? Like just a notch above SMGs in range. And considering that Bungie doesn't actually change the base default zoom of these auto rifles, the only auto rifle in the 720 department that had any ability to manipulate zoom was of course Misfit, and that's actually been sunset. I think there would have been a lot of ways here to make Arctic Haze a better weapon for PvP, and I wouldn't necessarily be that upset about it if I didn't just lose Valakadon. Okay, Valakadon was my favorite. Fantastic PvP auto rifle. Didn't get a lot of love because because just a lot of people didn't have a god roll of it. But if you had a good roll of it, my god, was it disgusting. Arctic Haze could have easily been better than any Valiant roll you've ever had it just had more options. Had I had Dynamic Sway, had we had a damage dealing perk outside, of course, Dragonfly, I think you would have seen some people entertaining Arctic Haze inside of Crucible. As of now though, guys, at least when it comes to this 720, this is not the go-to option for you. I would still much rather stick with either Steel Feather Repeater. I think Reckless Oracle is probably a tad bit more consistent, and by far the most lethal weapon, although it is a double-edged sword when it comes to 720s, is Tommy's Matchbook. I did like that they try to get creative with it and throw on Killing Wind, which does boost the range up a little more, which makes up for that issue of running into that 27.5 meter damage fall off range. But it would have been nice to tack that on with, say, something like Dynamic Sway. Like, I know that's not even including a damage dealing perk. Killing Wind, Dynamic, I would have loved that combination. Arctic Haze, to me, despite it having really good base stats, it just jumped a bunch. Like, it seemed more difficult to maintain and handle, despite it looking like I'm landing all my shots. Or not all my shots, but, you know, better than most console players. And nothing against console players, but this weapon, I'm like, Jesus, kind of difficult to control. I can only imagine how bad it is on console. And due to the fact that everybody's rocking a 120 these days, or Ace of Spades, I felt like every time someone landed a crit on me with a hand cannon, it was just Flinch City. There was nothing I can do. Yes, the weapon's got a 0.77 time to kill value, which is sexy. 9 crits, 1 body, it will put you in the ground. But if you can't even land any shots because you're getting flinched to hell and back from a time payload or explosive payload, True Prophecy, or a high caliber round Ace of Spades, it doesn't matter. And the fact that those weapons can hit you north of 35 meters to 44, 45 meters, you could be on the other side of the map getting hit for full damage before your bullets even make contact. But that's the reality, man. There's a lot of people that did not want an auto rifle meta, considering the auto rifle meta we just came out of. And really, to be realistic with you guys, I don't think that, you know, all of a sudden any auto rifle is going to become meta. If any weapon type is going to fluctuate in the seasons to come, it may be rapid fire weapon types, but I'm actually looking primarily at like rapid fire pulse rifles and even lightweight pulse rifles. Not saying you can't make them work, but they are the weapons that have just been left in the dirt. So as of now, Arctic Haze is a great weapon for PvE. And I know I didn't really have much gameplay here for PvE. It got corrupted, dude. Sorry, guys. But really though, Dragonfly, Thresh, Vorpal, with any of those combination of reloading perks, fantastic here. And considering it also does solar damage, combine that with Dragonfly, you can take advantage of Warmon cells being spawned from solar splash damage. Throw in a Dragonfly spec with it, and it's nasty. But for PvP players, guys, there are much better options. This weapon's got a little too much buck on it and not enough traits to rein it in. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.